Good Friday, everyone. I'm Cyrus Webb, and welcome to Conversation Daily News. Glad you all could be with us. Well, we made it to the end of another week. Of course, you have news headlines coming up on this Friday. I have a message from my book, Worry That Choose to Live By. And in today's news, you can use. You're hearing part of my conversation with Leonard, who's a chief meteorologist at the weather company, talking with us about the changing weather and what you can expect moving forward. You don't want to miss that. Enjoy today's broadcast. For Conversation Daily News, I'm Cyrus Webb with your Friday headlines. In national news, Senate deal on border and Ukraine at risk of collapse as Trump pushes stronger measures. A bipartisan Senate deal to pair border enforcement measures and Ukraine aid faced potential collapse on Thursday as Senate Republicans grew increasingly weary of an election year compromise that Trump, the likely Republican presidential nominee, seems likely to oppose. Senate negotiators have been striving for weeks to finish a carefully negotiated compromise on border and immigration policy that is meant to tamp down the number of migrants who come to the U.S. border with Mexico. But now that negotiations have dragged for weeks, election year politics and demands from Trump are weighing it down, says the Associated Press. At stake is a plan that both President Joe Biden and Senate Republican leader Mitch McConnell have worked for months to broker in hopes of cajoling Congress to approve wartime aid for Ukraine. The U.S. has run out of money to supply Ukraine, potentially leaving the country stranded without robust supplies of ammunition and missiles to fend off Russia's invasion. In a closed-door Republican meeting on Wednesday, McConnell acknowledged the reality of Trump's opposition, that he is the party's likely presidential nominee, and opened the door to other options, including potentially separating Ukraine and the border, according to two people who spoke anonymously to discuss the private meeting with the Associated Press. We're still working on it, McConnell told reporters Thursday morning. For weeks, McConnell has been stressing the need for Congress to approve tens of billions of dollars in aid for Ukraine, Israel, and other allies, as well as enact border changes in almost daily floor speeches, but on Thursday, he made no mention of Ukraine's fight. McConnell's comments raised fresh doubts in the Senate about his commitment to the border deal, though advocates for moving forward countered that the leader's remarks were being misinterpreted. The White House spokeswoman told reporters aboard Air Force One on Thursday that the Biden administration has been working with the negotiators in good faith and feels that progress has been made. We hope that will continue, they said. In more national news, Ring will no longer allow police to request doorbell camera footage from users, says the Associated Press. Amazon-owned Ring will stop allowing police departments to request doorbell camera footage from users, marking an end to a feature that has drawn criticism from privacy advocates. In a blog post on Wednesday, Ring said it will sunset the request for assistance tool, which allows police departments and other public safety agencies to request and receive video captured by the doorbell cameras through Ring's neighborhood app. The company did not provide a reason for the change, but will be effective starting this week. The head of Neighbors said in an announcement that law enforcement agencies will still be able to make public posts in the neighborhood's app. Police and other agencies can also still use the app to share helpful safety tips, updates, and community events. In more national news, Tennessee GOP leaders see no issue with state's voting rights restoration system. Tennessee's top Republican lawmakers say they have no issue with the state's strict policy on restoring voting rights for those convicted of a felony, arguing that those people shouldn't have violated the law if they wanted to continue casting ballots. Earlier this week, Tennessee's election office confirmed to the Associated Press that convicted felons must get their gun rights restored before they can become eligible to vote. The announcement shocked civil rights advocates who countered that the state's system is already arduous and this latest requirement will only further worsen voter disenfranchisement throughout the state. Others expressed shock at tying firearm access to voting. However, in GOP-dominant Tennessee, Republican leaders have repeatedly shrugged off calls to reform the state's voting rights restoration policy. This year is poised to be no different, as many members are preparing to run for re-election in a deeply conservative state. In international news, ceasefire efforts for Israel-Hamas war gain steam, but an agreement still appears elusive. Efforts to reach a new ceasefire between Israel and Hamas appear to be gaining steam, says the Associated Press. Egyptian and U.S. officials confirmed this week that they are actively pursuing ways to halt a war that has raged now for over 110 days. An Egyptian official said that Israel has presented a proposal for a pause in fighting, while the White House said it dispatched a senior envoy to the region for consultations with Egypt and Qatar. And finally, in business news, U.S. economy grew at a surprisingly strong 3.3% pace last quarter, pointing to continued resilience as the Associated Press. The nation's economy grew by an unexpected brisk 3.3 annual pace from October through December as Americans showed a continued willingness to spend freely despite high interest rates and price levels that have frustrated many households. Thursday's report from the Commerce Department said the gross domestic product, the economy's top output of goods and services, decelerated from its sizzling 4.9% growth rate the previous quarter. But the latest figures still reflected the surprising durability of the world's largest economy, which U.S. voters are assessing ahead of the November elections. Cyrus Webb, Conversations Daily News. It's time for a message from my book, Words I Choose to Live By. Enjoy. Good Friday and welcome to Words I Choose to Live By. You are amazing. Do not accept any less for yourself or from yourself. You can make an impact starting now. Have an amazing Friday and enjoy your weekend. We are part of my conversation coming up with Chief Meteorologist Dan Leonard in today's News You Can Use. Stay with us. You're listening to Conversations Daily News. For Conversations Daily News, I'm Cyrus Webb with your News You Can Use. Dan Leonard, the Chief Meteorologist at the Weather Company, joined me on Conversations Live, the radio show, to talk about the changing weather and what's causing it. Here's a bit of our conversation.
Dan, thank you again for the time. Really do appreciate it.
Absolutely. Great to be here.
So, Dan, this is a topic that I know all of us across the country are definitely in tune to. We went from being in the teens here in the South last week to now, of course, being in the 60s this week. So definitely we're experiencing the swings for sure. What is it that we need to know, though, Dan, about what's causing these changes in the weather right now?
So you noticed that it was a little extreme. Okay, that's good. Well, this is really the number one question that I get asked. Is this climate change in action? And honestly, I can't say climate change is causing these crazy events, but what I can say is that, yes, we can expect these kind of events to be more frequent in our warmer climate. So down in the South, you've had a pretty mild winter so far. And then you get this extreme cold shot last week, and now we're right back into the mild pattern. But don't forget, this has been a common theme the last couple of years. Remember last year, same thing happened right around Christmas. We got really cold in those first few days leading up to Christmas. It happened again the year before that. Remember the real extreme cold shot we had in February with all those freeze problems, especially over in Texas. So right. I think this is sort of a common theme that we're going to have going forward. And if you think about it from a pure meteorological standpoint, it makes sense. You're adding heat to a system. That heat is energy, so it's more energy for the jet stream to work with. So while overall your winters tend to be warmer, once the jet stream is able to tap into some of that extra energy, you get a lot of amplification. So you get to tap into this really bitter Arctic air. So in general, going forward the next couple of decades, expect warmer winters overall, but you're still going to get these extreme cold shots. They're brief, but they're really intense. That's what I think will happen going forward.
Cyrus Webb, Conversations Daily News. We thank you all for tuning in to this edition of Conversations Daily News. We're back to on Mondays, more news, message from my book, Words I Choose to Live By, and an entertainment spotlight. Until then, I'm your host, Cyrus Webb, saying as always, enjoy your day, enjoy your life, enjoy your world. Thank you all for choosing Conversations Daily News today. So let's go make today amazing. Take care.